Satan and his two allies. I don't know if I should say welcome to the study of this lesson. Despite the fact that what we will study today is very important, the whole chapter 13 of Revelation tells us the awful work of the Roman Antichrist, which has been in the process of fulfillment from the 6th century to the present time. We are living in the final stage of that negative story, and what awaits us is not appealing. Nevertheless, the knowledge of that past history is necessary to understand the nature of the coming conflict. For this reason, I encourage you to review it with me for the next few minutes. This story will help us to understand better what our mission is in the closing scenes of the final conflict of the world, which will be our focus in the following lesson. We are in the second part of the book of Revelation, which is more universal in its content. It begins by speaking of a leopard-like beast, which would appear in Christendom. But that beast, like the dragon who confers on him his authority, contains 7 heads, which denotes universality. So in Revelation 13, the appearance of the Antichrist represents under one symbol the rebellious spirit of all of the former empires. This is confirmed by the fact that the beast retains certain characteristics of the 4th beast or empire seen by Daniel in vision, such as the paws of the bear and the lion's mouth, Daniel 7. Do all the heads rule at the same time? No, they rule only one at a time, because the imperial heads are successive. We read in Revelation 17:10 that the 7 heads represent kings or kingdoms. It is said of them, 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. But the 10 horns are contemporaneous. They reign together. We are told in Revelation 13:1 that the diadems are upon the horns, not upon the heads. Therefore, the beast or Roman Antichrist reigns through the 10 European horns which appeared after the fall of the Roman Caesars. Who gives the Antichrist his throne and authority? The dragon. That is the Roman Empire through which the devil exerted his power to kill Jesus and persecute Christians. For this reason, we know that the Antichrist is settled in Rome and also in the midst of the Christian church, as specified by the Apostle Paul in his 2nd epistle to the Thessalonians. What plan does the devil attempt to execute by giving the Pope of Rome the throne of the Caesars as well as authority to reign over the kingdoms of the earth? He seeks to be worshipped by all the world through his appointed Son, as confirmed by all medieval history. Let us continue our study of the Roman Antichrist prophesied in the book of Revelation. Why is the beast identified with the Antichrist in Christian theology? Because along with persecuting true Christians, this beast opens its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven, Revelation 13:6. What exactly is blasphemy? The Pharisees defined it well. When Jesus forgave the paralytic, why does this fellow talk like that? They said. He is blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? The problem of the Pharisees was their unwillingness to recognize the one who was forgiven sins as being God himself in human flesh. But no other human beings has that authority, as Solomon recognized when he said that God is the only one who can forgive sins, because God alone knows every human heart. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 39. In other words, the Antichrist, who would succeed the Caesars of the old Roman Empire, pretend to occupy the place of God on earth, forgive sins, and impose himself upon the conscience of men. Now let us deal with the time of dominance of the Roman Antichrist. The despotic power which ruled the world for 1260 years was the Roman papacy. That period of time begins in the year 538 and reaches to the year 1798. During the first part of the 6th century, the Bishop of Rome was subject to the reign of the Ostrogoths, which did not support the Roman Catholic faith. But in the year 538, the Eastern Roman Emperor expelled the Ostrogoths from Rome through his general Belisarius, allowing the Bishop of Rome to exert the authority conferred by Justinian on his office as head of all the churches. In addition, Justinian addressed the Pope using the blasphemous title, His Holiness. Why is this term blasphemous? Because it belongs to God alone, as found in Revelation 15:4, which says, "For you alone are holy, and therefore worthy of worship." The political authority of the Antichrist, with which he persecuted the people of the Bible during the entire Middle Ages, was taken from him by General Berthier, commandant of Napoleon's army. He took Pope Pius VI, prisoner in the year 1798, and banished him to France, where he died nearly 1 year later. Berthier decreed that no successor would be permitted for the captive pope. This event was predicted for this very moment in time by John, when he said that he that leads into captivity shall go into captivity. Revelation 13:10. Be aware that every time the book of Revelation is studied, the devil tries to divert our attention from its actual contents to fanciful and speculative innovations. May this not happen in the study of this lesson or of any lesson in this quarterly. The secret is to keep ourselves within the biblical parameters clearly delineated in the book of Revelation, which are confirmed by the spirit of prophecy. The oppressive character of the Roman Antichrist, according to the book of Revelation, is exposed over the course of 42 months or 1260 prophetic days or literal years. That period ended in 1798, and there would not be a future fulfillment of that prophecy. The apocalyptic prophecies don't have a double or dual fulfillment. For example, once the time determined for the 5th and the 6th trumpets are fulfilled in history, John is told that the woes or trumpets have passed, and the following woe or trumpet will come soon. We find this in Revelation 9:12 and 11:14. When the spirit of prophecy says that history will be repeated at the end, she is not saying that the prophecy will be repeated. Repetition of history is announced by two different prophecies which have to do with the resurrection of the Roman Antichrist, who received a deadly wound in 1798. Unlike certain promises that God gave to Old Testament Israel, the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation are not conditional. They show us that God has a purpose for the course of human history that no earthly power can change. Likewise, it reveals that God's salvation does not depend on human success, but exclusively on the power of God to save. Those who propose a future and literal fulfillment of the dated prophecies are wandering into fantasy. Let us not waste our time with them, but leave them to be singed by their own sparks, which do not come from God, no matter how consecrated they may appear to be. To one brother who sought to find double fulfillments of fulfilled prophecies, L.G. White wrote, "Some will take the truth applicable to their time and place it in the future. Events in the train of prophecy that had their fulfillment away in the past are made future, and thus by these theories the faith of some is undermined. From the light that the Lord has been pleased to give me, you are in danger of doing the same work, presenting before others truths which have had their place and done their specific work for the time in the history of the faith of the people of God. You recognize these facts in Bible history as true, but apply them to the future. They have therefore still in their proper place in the chain of events that have made us as a people what we are today, and as such they are to be presented to those who are in the darkness of error. The truths that have been unfolding in their order as we have advanced along the line of prophecy revealed in the Word of God are truth, sacred, eternal truth today." Another statement of the spirit of prophecy. The great waymarks of truth, showing us our bearings in prophetic history, are to be carefully guarded, lest they be torn down and replaced with theories that would bring confusion rather than genuine light. Time has not been a test since 844 and will never again be a test, according to her statements. The Lord has shown me that the message of the third angel must go, but it must not be hung on time. I saw that some were getting a false excitement arising from preaching time, but the third angel's message is stronger than time can be. Now let us go to consider the government which would restore the political authority of the papacy according to Revelation chapter 13. Not all the heads of the first beast of Revelation 13 received the deadly wound, but only the one which would later be resurrected, causing the whole world to marvel and once again offer him worship out of convenience, if not conviction. It was the Eastern Roman Emperor who granted the papacy authority to reign, making it effective in the year 538. France, in the person of Napoleon's general Berthier, took that authority away in the year 1798. Yet another beast or government would appear near the end to restore that authority to the papacy once again. This is revealed in prophecy beginning with verse 11 of Revelation chapter 13. The second beast of Revelation 13 looks like a lamb, but ends up speaking like a dragon, assuming a position of supreme power with worldly characteristics. It appears on the scene at the conclusion of the 1260 years of tribulation caused by the Roman papacy in Europe. Since the many waters represent the populated territories of Europe, as we can read in Revelation 17, verse 15, that new power appears coming up from the earth, implying that it comes from a less populated and contested geographic location. The only government which appeared at that time with those characteristics is the government of the United States. This identification was seen for the first time in the second half of the 19th century, when the United States was still in conflict with Native Americans. In the first part of the following century, the United States became the 14th power in the world. Today, no one disputes that the USA is the superpower of the earth with a military arsenal that surpasses the rest of the planet combined. The government with horns like a lamb signifies the appearance of the kingdom of Christ, but instead of 7 horns like those the lamb had when appearing before the throne in Revelation 5, he has only 2. Its power is not complete like that of Christ, who received from his Father all authority in heaven and on earth, reason enough to be represented in the book of Revelation as the sovereign of the kings of the earth. Notice that unlike the 10 horns of the leopard beast, which have diadems upon them, no diadems are seen on the 2 horns of the beast like a lamb, while the 10 horns represent the separate kingdoms. The 2 horns of the lamb, which speaks like a dragon, form part of the same government, like the 7 horns of the lamb in Revelation 5. It is striking that even until today, the USA has been the only country ruled by 2 parties, Republicans and Democrats. Also, the system of the government itself is emphasized, which has always been Republican and Protestant in nature. The freedom represented by the Lamb is a symbol of the kingdom of Christ, which has no equal in world history. Jesus said, "If the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed," John 8:36. And the truth will set you free, verse 32. The Apostle Paul also stated that where the Spirit of Christ is, there is freedom, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17. But that freedom is to become corrupted in the USA by opening the door to multiple deceptions and all manner of deceitful miracles. For this reason, it receives the nickname false prophet. Pretending to have the character of Christ, he eventually speaks like a dragon. By putting aside the Bible as the Magna Carta of freedom, this Protestant country will dispense itself of the shield of truth and fall under the Roman papal deceptions. Worse yet, the Protestant government of the United States will restore the despotic power of the system of government which reigned over Europe during the centuries of obscurantism that characterized the Middle Ages. What manner of oppression will the United States use to impose the mark of authority of the Antichrist? The end of Revelation 13 clearly specifies it. Boycott. This is indeed the system that this government has been employing for several decades to cause other governments to fall. It will prohibit buying or selling by all who are unwilling to submit to its demands. By this method, the United States caused the government of Nicaragua to fall years ago, as well as the military regime of Haiti, and even the former Soviet Union. It continues to resort to that compulsory method to weaken governments which do not comply to the norms of the United Nations. That system allows the United States to maintain the appearance of a lamb, even while acting more like a dragon, because in most cases it causes governments to fall without the need of military intervention. Soon the system of submission employed by the United States will be employed against a group of religious believers who will not accept the mark of authority of the Roman Antichrist. The devil will employ it against those who keep the commandments of God and have in their midst the authentic gift of prophecy. In the end, by completely abandoning the law of God and opening its doors to all types of corruption, the United States will raise an image of the Roman Antichrist with a union of states and religion like that of the Middle Ages. In this way, they will erect massive restrictions on the citizens of the world. The moment will come when the United States will impose the death penalty on all who do not render homage to the Roman papacy by submitting to the counterfeit religious day which acknowledges the authority of the Roman pontiff over the word of God. All this will happen in the final stages of human history in conjunction with the final plagues that God will pour out upon the earth. Read the story as foretold in chapter 13 of the book of Revelation. How will God warn the world of the true intentions of the devil, carried out by his two allies, the papacy and the apostate Protestantism? We will read about it next week in the book of Revelation, chapter 14.